Once again, Nirvana.
January 1st, Chris stopped drinking. Quote, "On New Year's, I was in San Francisco. I was a raging drunk for 2 weeks on a tour. I was going around a hotel and bumped my head on an overhead heating appliance. Pow! I hit my head, it was all bloody, and I woke up in the morning and thought, God, I've got to quit this shit." On January 2nd, the band was in the midst of a tour with Pearl Jam and Red Hot Chili Peppers, two bands who really didn't share much with Nirvana. Around this time was when Chris finally admitted to himself that Kurt was on heroin. He looked like a ghoul, Chris said. With the wedding of Kurt and Courtney looming, the circle of friends became even smaller. Ian Dixon said, "I've always blamed Courtney for it, but I don't even know if that's true anymore. A lot of it was his inability to deal with his fame." At this time, Pearl Jam and Nirvana began feuding. The start came on December 31st, 91, when Pearl Jam played the intro of Smells Like Teen Spirit, then stopped, a gesture to piss off the band. The Nirvana camp claimed that the band didn't have punk roots and was just clinging to the coattails of grunge. Kurt said, "I have so many people who hate my guts for putting down Pearl Jam, and then I think, what value do those people have in my life, you know? I have to speak the truth. I have to say what I feel. I'm being honest, and people aren't used to that, especially in the commercial world." On January 9th and 10th, Nirvana rehearsed for their SNL appearance in New York. The band was told to go through the motions they normally would so that they could get down a shooting schedule. The band, of course, ignored this. The same day, Sassy magazine asked to have Kurt and Courtney on the cover. The magazine had a sense of indie cred, featuring content on Bratmobile and Bikini Kill. Later that night, they played MTV's 120 Minutes and performed 7 songs. On January 11th, Michael Levine took photos of the band at his apartment. Kurt's state was pretty bad, and he was nodding out most of the time. Quote, "Kurt was like, 'Give me the Flipper album,' so I passed him over a copy, and he took out a pen and drew the cover of the album onto his shirt." That night, when transportation showed up for the SNL gig, the limo was rejected, and the band showed up in a van instead. Upon arriving, Kurt threw up outside and proceeded to be rude to host Rob Morrow and anyone in his suit. Despite his state, the band performed Smells Like Teen Spirit and Territorial Pissings. Kurt didn't make eye contact with the camera, and his hair was dyed red after Courtney objected to him having it colored red, white, and blue. During the end credits, Kurt and Chris kissed as a fuck you to homophobes. Quote, "That was so spontaneous," Chris said, "and on the rerun, they showed a different ending. I know why. 2 guys kissing on TV? That's offensive. Whatever. There are so many more urgent problems than 2 people's sexual orientation." At this time, the couple found out about Courtney's pregnancy. Kurt was convinced the baby would be born with defects due to their drug usage. After leaving New York, Kurt and Courtney moved into a place at 448 North Spalding in Hollywood. This was more Courtney's choice, as the city suited her much better than him. On the 19th, the band shot the Come As You Are video in LA. Management was worried about the similarities to the Killing Joke song 80s, but with the choices being this song and In Bloom, they went with the one they found to be the more marketable single. Kevin Kerslake was chosen to direct the video, and filming was done at Wattle Golden Park in Hollywood, Kurt and Courtney's place, and the Van Nuys airport hangar. They were filmed with water and through plastic to be unrecognizable. Quote, "It was strange because here's Chris and I running around this field having a great time. It's a sunny day, and Kurt wasn't feeling too good." On the second week of February, Tori Amos released her cover of Teen Spirit, and the band later adopted it to play before their concerts. Quote, Every morning when Courtney woke up, we'd turn it up as loud as we could and dance around like a solid gold dancer. It felt really weird because the neighbors were listening. Maybe they thought I was an egomaniac, but I was really just miming the song and dancing around. It's a great breakfast cereal version. On Valentine's Day, the band met up with Shonen Knife. The band gave Kurt toy swords and a motorized Chim Chim monkey. Quote, "I hated Japan because people were so fucking polite," Dave said. "It pisses me off." On the 24th, Kurt and Courtney were married on Waikiki Beach. Dave was there, but Chris and Shelley weren't. Courtney claimed it was because they didn't approve of the marriage. Shelley claims it was because she wasn't happy about the heroin usage while she was pregnant. After the wedding, Chris didn't see Kurt for 2 months and barely spoke to him for 5 more. During this time, Kurt wrote many of the songs that would end up in Utero. His original working title was "I Hate Myself and Want to Die." At this time, both Everett True and Jesse Reed remember Kurt showing them footage of Bud Dwyer's live suicide. The tape had the actual headshot repeated to enhance the effect. Gold Mountain attempted an intervention with Kurt, and he entered rehab at the Exodus Rehab Center at Cedars-Sinai. Kurt's counselor, however, was very starstruck with Kurt, and he left 4 days later. During the downtime, Dave recorded songs in his Seattle home that would later end up on the first Foo Fighters album. On March 1st, the Come As You Are single was released. Kurt and Courtney became so private that he lost track with Ian Dixon, Calvin Johnson, Nikki McClure, Slim Moon, and Toby Vale. On April 7th, the band returned to a studio for the first time after Nevermind. They recorded at Laundry Room Studios in Dave's basement and laid down Return of the Rat, Oh the Guilt, and Curmudgeon. Quote, "We did them all in 1 or 2 takes," said Barrett Jones, their drum tech, who lived with Dave. Kurt was like, "You have a studio, we should record with you." It was quick and easy, even though my studio was the worst possible setup. No separation between the equipment and a small room. Everything was live except for the vocals. Yes, that's a lighter Kurt was flicking on Oh the Guilt. Relations in the band were miserable, and they even briefly broke up after Kurt was pushing new publishing royalties. Beforehand, they were all equal, but now he was claiming 75-25 and 100% of the lyrics. On July 3rd, the band played in Spain when Courtney started having contractions. Kurt finished the gig not knowing if she was going to give birth prematurely at any moment. On July 9th, Courtney posed for the infamous Vanity Fair shots. At the end of July, Kurt returned home to find a pipe in the bathroom had burst. He had hid many notebooks, 2 tapes with new songs, and a Mosrite guitar in the tub, thinking a thief would never think to look there, all of which was ruined. Out of anger, they called up John Silva and demanded a new place. They moved to 6881 Alta Loma Terrace. Kurt began working with the Melvins on what would become the Houdini album. The band refused to take most of his help. Quote, "These guys don't understand anything." July 21st, the Lithium single was released. The insert featured a picture of an ultrasound of Francis. The full lyrics from Nevermind were printed, and Curmudgeon from the Laundry Room session was used along with Been a Sun from the Paramount show Last Halloween. The video for the song was originally conceptualized by Kurt as a stop-motion piece done in the style of the Brothers Quay. It would feature a girl named Prego who would find a pile of eggs in her closet. She loads these eggs up on a train and rides through the forest on her way to a king's castle. On the ride over, all of the eggs but one have cracked, and that egg is placed upon an open book on the king's lap while he sleeps. When he wakes, he opens his legs and the egg is smashed by the book falling. When Kurt and Kevin Kerslake found out it would take 4 months to animate, they instead opted for the video we know now, made out of previously shot footage. On August 11th, the Vanity Fair issue hit stands. On August 18th, Francis was born. Courtney said, "I'm having the baby, it's coming out. He's puking, he's passing out, and I'm holding his hand and rubbing his stomach while the baby's coming out of me." Quote, "I was so fucking scared," Kurt said. "It was probably a classic case of what a typical father goes through. I was just so weak and sick and afraid that something was going to happen to Courtney or the baby." Francis was born perfectly healthy. 2 days later, a social worker showed up bedside with a copy of the Vanity Fair issue. On the 24th, the Los Angeles County Department of Children's Services petitioned to have Francis turned over to Jamie Rodriguez, Courtney's half-sister, until Kurt could go through a 30-day detox. Courtney was forced to leave the hospital empty-handed when she returned home. Kurt and Courtney sent out doing interviews with friends of theirs, hoping to lessen the blow. The court hearing was set for September 3rd. August 30th, the band played the Reading Festival. Rumors had long been spiraling about Kurt's health at this point, so he was at liberties to mock this, and showed up in a hospital gown and a wig, being pushed out in a wheelchair. The wig had been given to him by Everett, who used it to disguise his identity. Quote, "It was a present from my sister Allison. The previous year at Reading, I'd been threatened several times by Melody Maker readers, two with knives. Drew had been hanging out backstage when the decision was being made to let him wheel himself out when Everett drunkenly interrupted, 'Hey, let me push that. I can push that. Let me push Kurt onto the stage. It'd be way funnier.' They led up the side of the stage and a drunken wheelchair chase with L7 ensued, the whole time management fumed, thinking he was going to push the wheelchair off the side of the stage. Chris took care of the intro. He'll be okay. With the help of his friends and family, he'll survive. As Everett wheeled him to the mic, Kurt grabbed at his neck. Thinking Kurt was staging a fight for a split second, Everett started fighting back when Kurt whispered, 'No, you asshole, you're wheeling me to the wrong mic.' At one point, while introing all apologies, Kurt led the audience in a cry of, 'We love you, Courtney.' Nirvana then returned to the US, and Kurt went into rehab again. On September 8th, Kurt signed a waiver that would allow him to play in LA for the MTV Music Awards. The rehearsals were tense. Nirvana wanted to play Rape Me, but MTV said a hit or else. They even threatened to boycott other Gold Mountain management bands like Sonic Youth and Beastie Boys, and fire friend Amy Finnerty, who worked for the channel. The band agreed to play Lithium, and when the day came for the performance, Kurt played Rape Me anyhow. The first two bars of the song were played to shake the MTV execs up a little, and Lithium immediately followed. At the end of the song, Chris launched his bass into the air as he had done countless other times, this time it coming right down on his head. Dave took to the mic enthusiastically saying, "Hi, Axl!" over and over, referencing yet another feud the band had, this time with Guns N' Roses. The fight goes back as far as Axl asking the band to play his 30th birthday party, and the band rudely declined. Later, he tried to get Nirvana to open for their Spring '92 tour. Twice burned, Axl decided to crack on the band at a live show a week beforehand in Florida, so when Axl bumped into Kurt and Courtney backstage, the stage was already set. Courtney yelled out, "Hey Axl, will you be the godfather of our child?" Rose turned to Kurt and said, "You shut your bitch up or I'm going to knock you to the pavement." An emotionless Kurt turned to Courtney and said, "Shut the fuck up, bitch." Axl's girlfriend, trying to change the subject, turned to Courtney and said, "Are you a model?" And Courtney's response was, "No, are you a brain surgeon?" After Nirvana's performance, Chris disappeared after the flying bass incident. Guitar tech Ernie Bailey went looking for him. Quote, "I went looking for him out at our trailer. I figured he was probably there duct taping his head back together when Kurt came in laughing his ass off. He told me he'd spit across the keys of Axl's piano as he left stage. So we're laughing about that, watching the ceremony on TV, when these two pianos come up and Kurt goes, 'Oh, fuck, I spit on Elton's piano by accident.'" The show is also showcased by another feud, but this time coming to an end. Later in the evening, Kurt and Eddie Vedder slow danced Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven. Quote, "You're a respectable human being, even if your band does suck," Kurt told him. When Nirvana won their award for Best Alternative Music Video, the band sent up a Michael Jackson impersonator to accept the award. The audience didn't applaud. Quote, "A lot of it had to do with the fact they'd taken Michael Jackson off the top of the charts, but no one got Kurt's joke," said Janet Billig. Later, Rose's bassist Duff McKagan approached Chris and Ernie. Quote, He's got several bodyguards with him, and one person in his entourage was videotaping, like he's making a Guns N' Roses movie. Duff comes up to Chris and announces, "I hear you've been talking shit about my band," and Chris tells him that he hasn't said anything about his band. But Duff keeps going on and on about it, and so Chris says flat out to him, "Obviously you're trying to provoke me into a fight so you can film it for your Guns N' Roses fan movie, and I could easily kick your ass, but then you'd have 4 of your bodyguards kick the shit out of me. So let's walk over behind those buses there and it'll be you and me. I'll be more than happy to take you on." And Duff was like, "No, right here, right now," said Ernie. Duff was very thin and smelled like he was liquored up, so nothing happened. We walked on laughing at how absurd it was. Nirvana went 2 for 2 on awards that night. 2 days later, Nirvana played the Seattle Center Coliseum. Kurt had started taking major criticism for his pro-gay and pro-choice stance, and management had brought in a metal detector. There were even threats Kurt would be shot if he walked on stage. Donald Cobain had worked his way backstage to see Kurt again. Problem was, Wendy was backstage as well. It had been 18 years since the divorce, but the wound was still apparently deep as a fight started between the two. It ended when Kurt finally told his dad to shut up and Wendy left. On September 26th, Kurt appeared unannounced at a Sonic Youth Mudhoney show. He performed "Where Did You Sleep Last Night?" and joined Mudhoney on "The Money Will Roll Right In." October 15th, the band filmed the video for In Bloom. The video was shot entirely in kinescope to give it an authentic Ed Sullivan look. The host was Doug Llewellyn from the People's Court, and coincidentally, his first job was on the Ed Sullivan Show. Around this time, a book on Nirvana entitled Nirvana, Flower Sniffin', Kitty Pettin', Baby Kissin', Corporate Rock Whores was being written by Victoria Clark and Britt Collins. The book was soon an unauthorized work when Kurt and Courtney learned that 2 people interviewed was Falling James, Courtney's ex-husband, and Lynn Hirschberg. Having been attacked in the press for some time now, they smelled a conspiracy. What followed was Courtney, Dave, and Kurt calling Clark's home phone multiple times. They even called from Reciprocal Studios' phone while working on In Utero demos on the 25th and 26th. The messages ranged from pleading to outright threatening their lives. And Dino said, quote, "I'm not sure how seriously they were taking these phone calls while they were doing them. I think maybe they were taken very seriously by the recipients." The cops did get involved that day, but because of a noise complaint on Dave's behalf. Quote, "I said, I've got Nirvana in there. They're this huge band." But this cop said, "I don't care who you've got in there, you gotta turn it down." By mid-November, Kurt and Courtney had won back custody of Francis. However, they still had to submit regular urine tests and have a social worker arrive to make sure Francis was being raised properly. That same month, Thor Lindsay gave Kurt a first edition signed copy of Naked Lunch. Quote, "Then Kurt wanted to talk to Burroughs, so I gave him William's number. He told me, if there's any kind of idea about me and Burroughs," and I said, "You should do a collaboration." He said, "I'd do it in a second." Barrett recorded Kurt again at Laundry Room Studios as he played guitar for 26 minutes, and it was shipped off to Burroughs' assistant. On December 15th, Incesticide was released. The album was released for a couple of reasons. One being the band wanted another album out already, but Kurt hadn't finished the lyrics to most of the new songs. The second being they wanted to sort out the real fans by releasing something not as accessible as Nevermind. Little promotion was done for the release and sales were lukewarm. In the booklet, Kurt went on at great length on some of the finer things that his post-Nevermind success had brought him, but he also took it as a chance to air some grievances. Quote, "If any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of different color, or women, please do this one favor for us. Leave us the fuck alone. Don't come to our shows and don't buy our records." At the end of 1992, Kurt had spent $1 million. $80,000 was personal expenses, $380,000 went to taxes, and they bought a house for $300,000. The rest went to Lynn Hirschberg. Kurt said, quote, "That bitch owes me something."